सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पाद शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। गुकारस्त्वन्धकारश्च ऋकारस्तन्निवर्तकः अन्धकारनिरोधित्वात् गुरुरित्यभिधीयते। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। अमानित्वमदम्भित्वम् अहिंसा क्षान्तिरार्जवम् आचार्योपासनं शौचम् स्थैर्यमात्मविनिग्रहः इन्द्रियार्थेषु वैराग्यम् अनहङ्कार एव च जन्म मृत्युजरा व्याधि दुःखदोषानुदर्शनम् असक्तिरनभिष्वङ्गः पुत्रदारगृहादिषु नित्यं च समचित्तत्वम् इष्टानिष्टोपपत्तिषु मयि चानन्ययोगेन भक्तिरव्यभिचारिणी विविक्तदेशसेवित्वम् अरतिर्जनसंसदि अध्यात्मज्ञाननित्यत्वम् तत्त्वज्ञानार्थदर्शनम् एतज्ज्ञानमिति प्रोक्तम् अज्ञानं यदतोऽन्यथा। अमानित्वम् अदम्भित्वम् अहिंसा क्षान्तिः आर्जवम् आचार्योपासनम्. Reverence for the teacher, worshipping the teacher. Acharya upasanam, meditation upon the teacher or worshipping the teacher also is one of the important values in pursuit of knowledge, for preparation for the knowledge. What is meant by worshipping? Basically, the reason is that teacher becomes a role model for the disciple. It is from this standpoint that in the olden days in India, the disciples used to live with the teacher. They were antevasinaha. They were always living with the teacher. And they would learn from the teacher not only in the classroom, but they would learn from the teacher, from the person that the teacher is. And so the teacher becomes like an ideal or role model for the disciple to mold himself. And that is what is meant by worshipping the teacher. Again, tuning up with the teacher. So in order for the communication to take place, there must be a tuning up between the teacher and the student. What the student basically requires is what we call Shraddha. Lord Krishna says, Shraddhavan labhate jnanam. One who has a Shraddha or a trust in the teacher, this is one who gains the knowledge. One who has a Shraddha, the trust in the teacher as well as in the scriptures. Shastrasya Guru Vakyasya Satya Buddhya Dharana. So one who has a trust in the statement of the scriptures as well as in the words of the teacher. Meaning the one does not look upon them as separate. That is when the teacher becomes really a link between the scriptures and the disciple. So this tuning up is what is required. That is what is meant by upasana. Upasana means meditation, and meditation means tuning up with what it is that I am meditating upon. Identification. Identifying with the object of meditation, and so an identification on the part of the student with the teacher. And then the teacher-student will become like the teacher. So this is the whole idea of Acharya Upasanam. And so Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gītā, Tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshindite jnanam jnaninaha tattvadarshinaha. Here Arjuna, may you approach his wise and the learned teachers. Tad vidhi pranipatena. So approach them with pranipada, long prostration, pariprashnena, with the right kind of question, sevaya, and with seva or service to the teacher. So pranipada, seva and pariprashna. Approaching the teacher with long prostration, which is the indication of the Shraddha or the faith, that the teacher now places himself at the disciple, the disposition of the teacher. He has a trust that here is the teacher, he is a spiritual guide, and so he has a trust that he will be able to guide me and help me to reach my destination. So very often, therefore, in India, the teachers are also compared to a boat, just as a boat is the means of crossing the river. And so also the teacher becomes a means of crossing as though this ocean of samsara. And lots of things are said about the gurus in India, lots and lots, because in fact a great saint whose name was Kabir, his very famous statement is there, Guru Govinda dono khade, he says that both of them are standing before me. My Guru also is there and Govinda, Lord also is there. So Guru and Govinda, the teacher and the Lord, both of them are standing before me. Kako lagu paai, who should I salute first? Who should I salute first? Should I salute my Guru first, or should I salute even the Lord first? Says, Balihari Guru Apaki, Govinda Diyo Dikhai. Says, O Guru, my teacher, it is by your grace only that I could see the Lord, and therefore you deserve the first prostration. And therefore they even look upon the Guru as greater than God. This is an emotional thing, no doubt about that, but then every relationship always involves a certain emotion. So this is how the Guru is placed at a very high pedestal. Sometimes he is placed at a pedestal higher than even God. Because God is someone who is remote, someone who I do not see, and therefore it's a matter of Shraddha or faith, whereas Guru, the teacher, is right there in front of me, and therefore I can relate to him. Therefore some people look upon him as God, as I say, and this is how they worship him. We don't have to do that. We don't have to look upon Guru as God and worship him, but then the idea is that a recognition of the fact that this kind of identification is required for the teacher. Then alone what the teacher says will be received by me in all the trust, and my mind is open to grasp what is being said to me without questioning. And so listening to the teaching with an unquestioning mind. So with a mind that wants to understand, and not unreasoning mind but unquestioning mind. So sometimes the mind questions, how can he say that? What is, therefore when he questions, then the mind is not open. And so listening with an open mind. Not that we should necessarily swallow whatever it is that is told to us, because Vedantins don't like the students simply to swallow whatever they are told. In fact, whatever it is that it should pass through the scrutiny of our understanding, no doubt about that. But in order that we understand, we first of all give it, at least have the respect that whatever the teacher says must be all right. It must be right. Let me see in what way it is right. Because very often it happens that what the teacher says contradicts my present understanding. And that is why this communication becomes a little difficult. Here, the subject matter of communication is my own self. As far as what we call apara vidya is concerned, as far as the knowledge of the objective sciences or objective objects is concerned, then what I want to know is something different from me. That can be objectified, and that being the case, it is very easy to relate to the teacher. Whereas here, the subject matter is my own self. And I have all kinds of notions and conclusions about myself. And Vedanta, in fact, is the whole process of only destroying the notions. Ignorance brings about all kinds of notions or conclusions about myself, a judgment about myself, and Vedanta in fact takes each one by one these notions for scrutiny and see whether it is right, valid or not. And if the notion is not valid, then I should have the openness to drop it. And that can happen when I am identified with the teacher. That means I look at my own self also from the eyes of the teacher. That is what is meant by surrendering to the teacher. Just as Arjuna also handed over the charioteership or the drivership to Lord Krishna. Meaning that you drive the chariot. And Lord Krishna also looks at Arjuna. So, we find that he is holding the reins with his left hand and looking at Arjuna with this jnana mudra. But what it means is that when the identification is there with the teacher, then I am not identified with my ego. And then ego itself can be scrutinized objectively. What is important here and anywhere in process of gaining knowledge is to be objective about what it is that I want to know. To be objective about my own self, meaning the ability to create distance with myself, from myself. Ability to create distance from my own ego. Ability to create distance from my own notions and conclusions. And scrutinize them whether they make sense or not. And that is possible when I look at them from the eyes of the scriptures. And the teacher is nothing but the embodiment of scripture, and therefore, when I look at my own notions and conclusions from the eyes of the teacher. And that becomes possible when there is an identification of the teacher. And that is possible when I have the trust, shraddha and bhakti, devotion for the teacher. It is only from that standpoint that this is being said. It is not to really propagate some kind of a, cult, personal cult or something like that, or gurudom or something, but you understand how the knowledge takes place. The knowledge of the self takes place when I recognize ignorance as ignorance. When I recognize the notions, false notions as false notions. And for that, I must be objective with reference to my own notions and conclusions. This is called ego. What is ego is nothing but the bunch of all these notions and conclusions and judgments about myself. And I can be objective provided I create a distance with them. And I can create distance when I am standing at some other platform, which is the platform of the scripture. And here the teacher. And that is possible when I identify with the teacher. And so, creating an identification with the teacher. This is what is meant by Acharya Upasanam, worshipping the teacher, serving the teacher, meditating upon the teacher, is to slowly and slowly discover an identification with the teacher. Acharya means teacher, hitopadeshta, teacher. So they explain this word Acharya. Achinoti shastrani, or shastrartham. So one who has collected many scriptures, who is well informed with reference to scriptures. Acharya sthapayatyapi swayam achardayastu. So here is a person who is well versed with the scriptures, swayam achardayastu, and one who puts them into his own practice. Acharya sthapayatyapi, and one who makes other people also practice that. So here are the scriptures. They are not merely, so as far as the teacher is concerned, he doesn't merely have an academic knowledge of the scriptures, but for whom the scriptures is a reality, meaning that one who has known the scriptures and who practices what the scriptures are teaching, and one who helps other people also to put that into practice. So Acharya, the teacher, must have the capability of communicating as well as helping, guiding and helping others also to be able to imbibe this teaching. Because the whole idea is that the teacher wants to see the disciple also become like him. As Swamiji would explain, that this process of communication is like lighting one lamp from the other lamp. So when you light one lamp from the other lamp, then the second lamp also is as complete as the first lamp. And similarly also, passing on the knowledge also is like that in fact the teacher wants to convert the disciple into another teacher, or like him. And that's the reason why Shankaracharya says in one place, praising his teacher. He says, I do not find any comparison. I do not find any comparison to describe my teacher in the whole three worlds. I search everywhere. I search the earth, I search the middle world, I search the heavens. I do not find anything that can really compare with my teacher. My teacher is so great. Yeah, there are so many great things in the world. Somebody suggested, how about a philosopher's stone? Because philosopher's stone is a great thing. So when it touches a piece of iron, that iron is converted into gold. So it is said about the philosopher's stone. Whether such a thing is there or not, I do not know, but this is what is said. There are many things said in the mythology which are very interesting concepts. Like there is this bird called swan or hamsa. He has a capacity to separate milk from water, So nice things. There is also the concept of what we call the kalpataru or wish-fulfilling tree. So if you stand under the tree, whatever wish arises in your mind, these are nice things, Whether such things are there or not, I do not know. But then, similarly also we have this philosopher's stone. That means there is a stone which converts the iron into gold. So how about that? Isn't your teacher really, doesn't this philosopher's stone also, is it not a good comparison for your teacher? Because teacher also converts the students, just totally brings about transformation in them. Then Shankaracharya says, that's right. The philosopher's stone is indeed a good comparison, but not adequate comparison. Because the philosopher's stone only converts iron into gold, but cannot convert iron into another philosopher's stone. Whereas my teacher is the one who converts all those who take refuge into him, who converts them, makes them like him. Sriyam samyam vidhatte. So he makes them equal to him, similar to him. And thus, as I said, lots of things are said about the teachers. And they are said on the part of the students who have gained that grace of the teacher. What we require is the favor of the teacher, the grace of the teacher. Prasannam tamanuprapya pruched jnatavyamaatmanah. When you find that the teacher is pleased with you, then approach him with proper question. So please him, make him favorable to him. Become the recipient of the favor or grace of the teacher. Swamiji is pleasing the teacher. Do we have to flatter him, bribe him? What do we have to do? Well, pleasing the teacher means they are supposed to be pleased anyway. They don't have an agenda, they don't have any need, and therefore I don't think anything should be required to please them. But still, make them favorable to me. Meaning that impress the teacher with my own sincerity. Because people approach these Mahatmas or great souls from various things. It is not that everybody always goes to this great people merely for knowledge. They go for many material gains also. But then, when the teacher gets impressed that here is one who wants to really learn, that's the only agenda he has, then he gets mighty pleased, and therefore you have to make it known to the teacher that you are a jignasu, you are a seeker of knowledge. And when the teacher finds that you are a sincere seeker of knowledge, then all his grace or favor is available to you. His favor is always available to everybody, but we have to tap it. Tap the grace, So Swamiji says, tapping the grace. And just tap the grace of the teacher. And this is called upasanam. How do I tap the grace of the teacher? By serving him, by worshipping him. Swamiji teachers also require service. They don't require service. But as I say, it is for our own good that we do that. And so, serving means what? When can you serve somebody? When you really meditate upon that person. To serve somebody, we must know what the requirements are, what the likes and dislikes are, and therefore identifying with those likes and dislikes, letting go of your own likes and dislikes, and identifying the likes and dislikes of the one whom you want to serve. And that's how the student slowly and slowly gets transformed and becomes like the teacher. So that's the whole idea of Acharya Upasanam, worshipping the teacher, revering the teacher. And the teacher then can do his job. Even though the teacher may do the job, the student may not necessarily benefit to the full extent if that kind of relationship is not established. So on the part of the disciple, there is this Shraddha, the trust, and Bhakti, devotion. And on the part of the teacher, there is this care and concern and compassion and the patience on the part of the teacher. Of course, the teacher has that. He has the patience, he has the compassion, he has the care, he has the concern on one side, and the devotion and the faith and enthusiasm and desire to know on the part of the student. If such a wonderful combination takes place, then of course the communication will be very effective. And therefore, as we said, in the context of the pursuit of knowledge, this value is given. And all we are interested in is the knowledge, for the knowledge to take place. And knowledge can take place when my mind grasps what it is that the teacher is telling me. And the mind can grasp when it has a proper disposition, which disposition in fact is achieved by what we call upasanam, or worshipping the teacher. And that is why this important value is given here. So Acharya Upasanam. The next one is Shaucham. Shaucham is cleanliness. That's also a value. That's interesting. Cleanliness is a value. So this cleanliness is twofold. One is external cleanliness, other is internal cleanliness. Twofold cleanliness. What is external cleanliness? Cleanliness of the body, of the clothes, of the things around me, of the place where I work, the place where I live, the cleanliness. And so I'm sure that we don't have to teach that to anybody, because in a civilized society there is a value for cleanliness. But there should be a value for true cleanliness, not just appearing clean, not by spraying stuff and things like that, but there must be a value for cleanliness. Because when the body is clean, it affects, it has an influence on the mind. A clean body has an influence on the mind, and otherwise also, so body has an influence on the mind. That's the reason why they always prescribe bath. And people are generally prescribed to take bath at least twice a day, sometimes 3 times a day, every Sandhya, but at least twice a day. Because when you've taken that full bath, then the body is clean and body is fresh, and that also imparts the freshness to the mind, and that's the reason why this is recommended. Also the clothes must be clean. Every time you take the bath, put on the new clothes, fresh clothes. So at least while doing meditation, worship, etc., there must be this fresh clothes, so that the mind also enjoys that freshness. And so that is the external cleanliness. Also a value for cleanliness is the place where I work, keeping my table all right, my desk all right, my things all right, my room all right. You go to typical room of typical teenager these days, and that will be interesting, what is meant by avyavastha, what is meant by disorder, if you want to see that. Go typically to the room of a teenager. Amazing. I just cannot imagine how this person lives here. There is not a spot, there is not a square inch of space where you can stand. The clothes are lying here, the books are lying there, things are just lying there. Where do you stand? What do you do? I think tiptoeing in some way they must be finding the place. It's amazing. But then, I guess the external disorder perhaps also is an indication of the disorder that is going on in the mind also, perhaps, And external order also is a reflection of the inner order, and therefore, keeping order outside of myself would bring about also an order in the mind. And therefore, keeping things in order, everything in order. Sometimes people go overboard with that, A friend of mine, every evening he would come home and spend 45 minutes keeping everything in order. Even though his wife has kept everything in order, but he is not satisfied. He will keep everything in order. He'll put everything, in the proper place like that. And so, but basically a value for having things in order. Also, when we are talking about outer cleanliness, we should also speak about the cleanliness of the food, because what we eat also affects our body as well as affects our mind. And so we find in the Bhagavad Gīta in 17th chapter, Lord Krishna talks about three kinds of food: sattvic food, rajas food, and the tamas food. So too hot and too sour and too bitter, anything too salty, everything too much. This is the rajas. That is the food that is stimulating food, agitating food, and brings in its wake diseases. And leftover and stale and stuff like that, and stinking, that kind of food is all the tamas food. That makes the body, mind very slothful and inert. And what we have, the sattvic food. So sattvic food is that which brings about a tranquility of the mind. So the important thing is, the question is, Swamiji, what's the relevance of this vegetarian food in my life? Apart from various reasons that we give in terms of non-violence, in terms of scientific reasons and so forth, health reasons, but as far as the spiritual pursuit is concerned, an important reason is the state of mind, because food has an immediate effect upon the mind also. Chandogya Upanishad says that the food that you eat, or food that you consume, the grossest element of that food is rejected from the body. The middle element of the food goes into making up of flesh, etc. And the subtlest aspect of the food, subtlest part of the food, goes into nourishing the mind. And so they say that mind is the modification of food. Annamayam hi somya manaha. So the teacher says, O Somya, O good looking one, the mind is annamayam, modification of food. And therefore, food becomes very important. To keep the body also clean, as well as mind also clean. It is not that food is the only thing, but then it is also one of the things. And therefore, being careful about the food. And when we talk of food, we consume food through the mouth, but we also consume food through many other things. We see things also. All the sense organs also, we receive stimuli from all the sense organs. So we hear things, we read things, we see things, we touch things, we smell things, we taste things. All of these also can be included in food which is consumed by us. And all of this has the influence upon our mind. What I read, what I see, what I touch, what I smell, what I taste, what I talk, all of this has influence upon the mind, and therefore one should be careful about what kind of stimuli are going into one's mind. Stimuli from all the different contexts. And therefore, one should be alert about contacting things at the level of sense organs also. This is pertaining to what we call the external cleanliness. This is the Bhahya Shaucham, external cleanliness. Other is, and more important, what we call internal cleanliness. That's more important. What is meant by internal cleanliness? The cleanliness of the mind. So what is meant by unclean mind? What is meant by impurity of the mind? The impurities, that is called impurity of the mind, which disturbs the mind. Whenever a given kind of a thought arises in the mind, if that disturbs my mind, if that creates a conflict, if it makes me unhappy, if it creates a distraction, then this is what we call the impurity of the mind. And when the mind is impure, naturally I don't have the capacity to focus my mind, because mind is disturbed, mind is unhappy. So these kind of thoughts which arise in the mind are called impurities, and therefore we should be also committed to the purity of the mind. Like in our day-to-day activities or day-to-day interactions, some spot comes on the clothes. So walking along the path one day, something drops from the tree. Something happens. Some bird is dropping, or some fruit falls. Something falls. Drinking, sipping your tea, sometimes the tea also spills on the clothes, and these kind of things happen. Or you may sit somewhere and then you find that the clothes are stained. So sometimes stains on the clothes, sometimes some dust also comes. All these kind of things come in our day-to-day life, and how we are always careful in removing those things. We know very well that when a tea stain gets on my clothes, if I do not remove it right away, if I let it just stay there for 2-3 days, it becomes very difficult to remove it. When it is fresh, it can be removed very quickly. And also like these cobwebs and things, in the rooms. If you don't pay attention to a room, then if you go there after 6 months or 8 months, we find how many cobwebs are there. And so, as even the cobwebs are made, immediately remove them. So, this value of keeping things clean. So just as we do that as far as external cleanliness is concerned, and similarly also, this kind of spots of impurities, they do happen or they do take place in our mind also. And so while talking to people sometimes, somebody says something which I find insulting. Somebody says something which I find humiliating. So sometimes I'm hurt, sometimes I'm insulted, sometimes I'm humiliated. Or looking at somebody, sometimes jealousy arises, sometimes aversion arises, sometimes dislike arises, sometimes hatred also arises. It just arises and goes away. So thus, in our day-to-day interaction, these kind of what we call undesirable thoughts or negative thoughts which have a disturbing tendency in the mind, they do take place. If you do not pay attention to them, and if you just allow them to accumulate, then it is like not attending to the stain of the tea on my clothes, and thus it becomes more difficult to remove that. And similarly also, when this kind of tendencies, which we call impurities, when they arise in our mind, and if you are not attentive and not alert in removing them there and then they have a tendency to accumulate. And then it becomes very difficult to get rid of them. Because when a given thought is entertained again and again and again, then it gets into deeply rooted in me and then it controls me. So Ramakrishna Paramahamsa used to compare the mind with a copper pot. Some of you who may be performing puja might know the nature of this copper pot. They have this kalasha, they have this pot for filling water which they use for worship. This copper is naturally gets oxidized. And to clean it, you usually require a tamarind or something sour. Tamarind, if you use tamarind and salt and then clean that surface, immediately the surface shines like gold, So copper starts shining like gold. What you need is some tamarind and put a little salt also. When you do that, it starts shining. How long? For a few hours. Then again it starts getting oxidized. And next day if you see that, again it has gathered some spots. Again you clean it. And just as a copper pot requires cleaning every day, otherwise the spots, oxidization will keep on accumulating, and then it may become very difficult to remove them if you don't attend to it for maybe a month or two. And similarly also the spots that arise on the surface of our own mind should also be removed. Otherwise they'll get accumulated, they'll become deeply rooted, and they will control the tendencies of our mind, and we will find it rather difficult to get rid of them. So this process is called shaucham. This process of all the time cleaning the mind is called inner cleanliness. What's the method? So what's that tamarind? It's all right, with reference to copper pot, you use tamarind, What do you use in terms of, what is the tamarind for cleaning the mind? So here it is said here, so pratipaksha bhavanaya ragadi malanam apanayanam shaucham. Pratipaksha bhavana. So this is a method that Yoga Shastra prescribes, pratipaksha bhavana. Quite well known to all the students of Vedanta, pratipaksha bhavana. Paksha and pratipaksha. Paksha means a position, pratipaksha means opposite position. And they were deliberately creating or deliberately taking the opposite position. Understand that whenever any disturbing thoughts arises in my mind, that is because I have taken a certain position with reference to the one with whom I am contacting. For example, when jealousy arises in my mind, when I meet somebody who is more accomplished than I am, who is more learned than what I am, or more wealthier than I am, or more successful than I am, then usually the reaction that arises in my mind is one of jealousy. The internal burning that takes place when I see somebody progressing, And so this is unfortunate, but this is what happens to everybody. Jealousy. So, this is one position I have taken. On account of looking at that person in a certain way, jealousy has arisen. Because he is progressing. He is going ahead of me. He gets more recognition than whatever I have value, when I find that that person is more of what I value than what I have, then usually the response is one of jealousy. Then, what is pratipaksha bhavana? So when one standpoint is accepted by me, then jealousy arises. Then I deliberately take the opposite standpoint. Opposite standpoint is when I see somebody really doing well, when he has and that person has much more of what I value. Suppose I value for learning and I find that person very learned. Suppose I value for recognition, I find that person much more recognized. Then either jealousy or I can congratulate him. I can be happy. I can congratulate him. How would I feel if I had that accomplishment? Oh, I would really be happy. I would congratulate myself. All that, congratulate that fellow. Be happy that is accomplished. And thus, this spirit of congratulation, spirit of being happy at the progress of somebody else, is a spirit that is opposed to jealousy. And so, I deliberately make my mind take the opposite standpoint. Like every coin has two sides. When I look at it from one side, then I see it one way. When I look at it from other side, I see it the other way. Or other than that, the famous example of a glass that is half filled. So I can call it half empty, or I can call it half filled. So looking at it one stand, oh, you give me half empty glass. My glass is half empty. That's one way of looking at it. Or half filled, that is another way of looking at it. It is just a change in standpoint. It's the same thing, but it can be looked at from these two opposite standpoints, and so this is called Pratyapaksha Bhavana. It's not a make-believe thing, it's a fact that the glass is half empty, at the same time the glass is half full. It's up to me how to look at it. And so also, no doubt, this person has advanced and he has done much more than what I do, and I can be jealous. You know why do I feel jealous? You know what, that person who has gained more recognition than I have, or I don't know, whatever it is I said that I value. If I value success in my career, then this fellow has advanced much more, in career than I have. So when I see these people, or when I come in contact with the people who have accomplished more than I have, you know what happens? Why do I feel unhappy? That is because that person reminds me of my inadequacy. When I see him, then, oh, his salary is $250,000 a year, mine is just $100,000. So, when I hear, oh, but we were studying together. Yes, we were studying, he's much smarter fellow, and that's why he has just made it like that. So when I hear about him, or when I meet him, and when I know about him, then his accomplishment, in fact, makes me keenly aware of my inadequacy. It is not that he has achieved something, but that I have failed to achieve something because I am inadequate. And that is what makes me unhappy. The reason why that burning sensation arises in my heart when I see somebody better than me is because that reminds me of my inadequacy. So therefore, on account of looking at my inadequacy, if I am jealous, I can look at his adequacy and I can congratulate him. And so the two stand the same. Both the one phenomenon can be looked upon from two opposite different standpoints. And I ask my mind, all right, you see mind, just by being jealous of him, you are not going to be different from what you are. You are not going to be adequate anyway by being jealous of him, and therefore, why don't you congratulate him? Why don't you learn something from him? Why don't you feel happy? So usually I feel unhappy when somebody is happy. Usually what happens? I feel happy when somebody is unhappy. When somebody fails, then I say, that's good. When somebody slips, that is the habit of the people sometimes. But then, rather than that, why not I feel happy? When I enjoy somebody's progress, somebody's happiness. And thus this tendency of the mind has to be turned around. And this I do. Every time jealousy arises in my mind, then every time I remind my mind, enjoy his accomplishment, be happy at his happiness. And if one can learn something, get some inspiration. Or if you cannot, doesn't matter, just bless him. Bless him that he should proceed further. Rather than being jealous, bless that person. So this is one example of what we call Pratyapaksha Bhavana. A bhavana, this spirit on my part, which arises by taking the opposite standpoint. This jealousy is a thing that everybody suffers from, in one measure or the other. Other thing that we often suffer from, the Yoga Shastra says that every day, generally speaking, there are 4 kinds of people that we come across in our day-to-day life. People who are equal to us, people who are not as good as us, people who are better than us, and people who are opposed to us. 4 kinds of people. People who are equal to us, people who are not as good as us, inferior to us, or not as good as us, people who are superior to us, and the people who just hate us or dislike us or oppose to us. And Yoga Shastra prescribes, what kind of tendency we should entertain. So when I come across people like me, then my general response is how to get ahead of competing, So when I am in presence of people like me, then the response generally is comparing and then how to get better than him. When I come across people who are better than me, then jealousy arises. When I come across people who are not as good as me, then generally an aversion arises. And when I come across people who don't like me, who hate me, then usually a spirit of retaliation. He doesn't like me, I also retaliate by dislike him. So these kind of things happen. So in our day-to-day activities also, this kind of either competing tendency, disliking tendency, an aversion for somebody, jealousy for somebody, competing with somebody, all of these are what we call the impurities of the mind, because when these tendencies arise in our mind, then the mind gets disturbed. That is what we call stress, that is what we call unhappiness. And if you allow this tendency to build up, then ultimately they will take hold of me. I will find myself an unhappy person, a sad person, and then a depressed person. If it builds up, first I become unhappy. Allow it to build up, becomes sadness. Allow it to build up, becomes depression. And so before all these things happen, I deal with them. So Yoga Shastra says, Maitri, Karuna, Mudita, Upeksha. Maitri, when you meet people like you, then rather than competing with them, Maitri, make friends with them. Let there be an affection for them. Let there be friendliness for them. Mudita, when you come across people who are better than you, more accomplished than you, then rather than feeling jealous of them, Mudita, be happy in their accomplishments. Congratulate them, bless them, be happy. When you come across people who are not as good as you, then rather looking down upon them, be compassionate to them. Look at this fellow, Swami was studying with me, but where is he? He's not done anything in his life. Okay. Maybe he did not have the kind of advantages that you had. He did not get the opportunity that you had. He did not have the education that you had. And that's the reason why he is not like you. And therefore, be compassionate. Be kind to them. So instead of aversion, kindness. Sometimes people don't behave properly. Their language is not right. Their clothes are not right. Their behavior is not right. And then that creates in my mind an aversion. Rather than that, have what we call kindness or compassion. Because as you said, he did not have the benefit of education that you had. He did not have certain benefits that you had. Maybe you were born in a family where you had certain kind of upbringing which this person did not have. And that's the reason why the person is what it is. And therefore, be kind or compassionate to the person. And when you come across somebody who dislikes you, rather than responding with a dislike, rather than the attitude of retaliation, just be indifferent. Upeksha. Okay, leave him alone. Meaning that tolerance. So when you come across people who do not like you, then the usual response is, I don't like him. When somebody rejects me, usually I react by rejecting them. Here it says tolerance. It's okay. There also can be that people may not like you. It's quite possible. Maybe they do not understand you. Maybe they do not know what you are. And that's the reason why they do not like you. They hate you. They dislike you. They are inimical to you. But then tolerate that. Do not retaliate. So instead of retaliation, tolerance. Instead of jealousy, congratulations. Instead of competition, friendship. Instead of aversion, compassion. So Maitri, Mudita, Karuna, Upeksha, some of the examples of what we call the Pratipaksha Bhavana. And one of the other things also that we suffer from, many people suffer from, is what we call looking down upon one's own self, blaming myself. So when something does not get accomplished, then I have a tendency to blame. Either I blame somebody because this person is responsible because that's the reason why I could not accomplish, or I consider myself responsible. Either I blame somebody for my lack of accomplishment, or I blame myself. And this business of blaming myself, looking down on myself, self non-acceptance, self-condemnation is a very unhealthy thing. And everybody suffers from it in one measure or the other, self-non-acceptance. It is true that I am inadequate in myself and therefore I am not adequate, therefore I am not happy with myself. But sometimes this self-non-acceptance becomes very pronounced. What happens is that everybody has expectations from their own self. So not only we demand from other people as to what they should be, we also demand from ourselves what I should be. I have expectations from my own self. No, this I should be able to do. Swamiji, in the test, my score in the SAT must be this much. Or I must get admission in this particular school. Or my grade point average must be this. Or I must get job in this companies. Or having gotten job, I must have this kind of salaries. Whatever it is. Or I should be an honest person. I should be a loving person. I should be a kind person. These are expectations. I have certain values which I value. I want to be a non-violent person, don't want to hurt somebody, but sometimes inadvertently I find myself hurting others. I do not want to use harsh words, but sometimes out of anger, I do find myself using harsh words. Meaning that I find myself sometimes behaving in a manner which ultimately I do not approve. I later regret. And thus sense of guilt arises in me. And when guilt piles up, then this sense of dislike arises in me. And then self non-acceptance and ultimately self-condemnation. So this guilt feeling, self non-acceptance, self-condemnation, if you do not pay attention to that, then also they can destroy me. That also results into what we call sadness and depression. So we should be attentive to our own self. And this morning we talked about Shama. We talked about forgiveness. When we show forgiveness to others, I think we should show forgiveness to our own self also. I should not expect myself to be perfect. I should not expect myself to be always able to, accomplish what I think I should accomplish. I should recognize that I am also a limited being, and therefore I can also err. I can also commit a mistake. There are limitations in me also, and therefore I should allow for the limitations sympathetically. Not that it's a justification of limitation. I have a commitment to overcome my limitations, all right, but then in that process, I do not dislike myself. I do not reject myself. May I stay away from this tendency to reject myself or to condemn myself. Forgive myself. Accept myself. As Swamiji says that we should also learn to like our own self as we are, including all our limitations, because nobody is created perfect. We have this personality consisting of body, mind, complex, and it is an incomplete personality. It has a lot of virtues, at the same time it has limitations also. It has faults. My mind also has faults. And that I can be committed to overcome these faults as much as I can. At the same time, I must accept these faults or limitations also as a reality of life and be sympathetic to them. Okay, mind, don't condemn yourself. Oh, but why did I do that? Kimaham sadhuna karvam, kimaham pāpam karavamiti, says Taittiriya Upanishad, that this kind of regret comes in me. Why did I fail? Why did I fail to do that good act? Why did I perform that evil act? So why did I do something that was not right? Or why did I fail to do something that was right? What this happens, Sometimes I do something that's not right. And sometimes I don't have enough strength to do something that is right. I know, I wish that I could, I have money in my pocket, I wish I could give it to that person, but somehow, that generosity does not occur at that time. Later I regret, I wish I had done that. I wish I had gone out of my way to help that person. But somehow that time it doesn't happen. And later on I regret. So, this sense of regret, sense of guilt, this kind of thing arise, this also is an impurity of the mind. And we should not allow this to stay, otherwise the guilt keeps on coming again and again, then I brand myself a guilty person. And then I lose my confidence and I become incapable of accomplishing anything. And therefore, overcoming or dealing with this sense of guilt also, or the sense of what we call self-non-acceptance. That I am all right as I am, that I have a limitation also. And sometimes what happens is, the demands from myself are so big that I cannot fulfill them. Sometimes we take vows, this fellow is a Swamiji, today Ekadashi I am going to stay hungry. This fellow eats 5 times a day and all of a sudden he takes a vow, I am going to observe fast today. And by the time afternoon comes and then, all kinds of cats and dogs are the sounds are there in his stomach, he just cannot stand. And he finds that he had to eat something. So when we take these kind of vows, or make these kind of resolves, then we should recognize whether or not we really have the capacity to do that or not. Let us not impose this kind of very difficult things upon ourselves. Oh, I am going to stand, I am going to meditate for 1 hour. Well, you are not able to sit for 5 minutes. How can you meditate for 1 hour? And so, when we take these kind of vows or the values also, I will never get angry. That's all right, but then, it's not that easy. Because anger does not seek your permission before coming, it just comes. It's only after you get angry that you find out that I got angry. Therefore, it is impossible. This kind of vow can never be fulfilled, I will not get angry. Then I should understand what's the cause of anger. Anger comes because I make demands upon other people. Then I can take this vow that I will not make demands upon others. That's a doable thing. Because since anger does not come willfully, therefore I cannot do anything about anger, then I should understand that if I want to become free from anger, I should try to become free from the cause of the anger. And what causes anger is my expectations, my demands. And so, I can say that I will not make demands upon other people. That is within my control. So as I said, whenever I impose this kind of requirements from me, when I have this kind of expectations from myself, I should consider whether or not I have the capacity to fulfill those expectations or not. And sometimes what happens is that even though I have a capacity, I just don't have the alertness. Sometimes I am not just there. My mind is wandering someplace, and therefore when the time came to do something, my mind was not there. And so even though I had resolved yesterday, I'm going to observe fast tomorrow, but then by habit in the morning, so as soon as you finish your shower and things, the first thing is to eat breakfast, and therefore, but you see, if somebody is serving you breakfast and they'll remind you that Swamiji, today you have to observe fast, But when I am serving myself, particularly women, this happens, so they don't sit down and eat breakfast, they open the cupboard and put something in the mouth and do something like that, And so the first thing that happens is put something in my mouth. Then I realize I was supposed to eat only once a day. So that becomes a meal, This is all. So sometimes lack of alertness also is the reason why I am not able to fulfill my commitments or not able to follow my values. And so I should understand what is the reason why I am not able to measure up to my own expectations. This problem of not being able to measure up to my own expectations because I have expectation of my own self. And this is a big problem. And so, let me understand what the expectations are. Let me recognize whether or not I have the capacity to fulfill those expectations. Let me understand how the expectations can be met with. So let there be proper attention, let there be proper understanding, and then I judge myself. I always judge myself. People who judge others, they also judge themselves. And so, before I judge myself, let me have this proper data before I judge myself. And that is how this, what we call the tendency to look down upon myself, or tendency to reject myself, tendency to condemn myself also is one of the important impurities of the mind, and we should be careful about that as well. So this is what is meant by Shaucham. Shaucham means the cleanliness external as well as cleanliness of the mind. And external cleanliness is relatively easy, but internal cleanliness requires a constant alertness. It is not that I do it sometimes, Swamiji, if I do it about 10 minutes a day, it's okay. No, this is a process that goes on constantly. It's a good idea to set aside 10 or 20 minutes in the evening so that we can go over the important events of the day and we can see when I was successful in practicing the value and when I was not able to do that, I can review that. And I can use those experiences to educate my mind as to when a similar thing happens again, what should I do? Swamiji, I got angry 10 times today. Okay. Then in the evening I look at this and I see what was the cause of the anger? Where was the demand? And I ask my mind, can you drop this demand? Can you drop these expectations? So this introspection is very helpful. Introspection is very helpful. Maybe 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the evening. In 10 minutes in the morning I can spend to tell my mind how I should conduct myself today. Look mind, that fellow is going to come today and therefore be prepared. Look, my boss is likely to say this, be prepared. The spouse is likely to say this, be prepared. Children may do this, be prepared. The neighbor may act like this, be prepared. Whatever. The traffic can be like this, be prepared. So wherever there are possibilities of the mind reacting, I prepare my mind so that when that event happens, the mind will be able to deal with it. And in the evening again I spend some time to see whether or not this thing worked, and I educate my mind as to how to do it next time. So introspection also becomes very important until we become introspective constantly. Constantly I make notes of the tendencies arising in my mind and I keep on resolving them. So this is the Shaucham, what we call the cleanliness of the mind, an extremely important value. Okay. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Vadarayanam Sutra Bhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah. Ishvaro Gururatmedi Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyoma Vadvyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye